They say you remember the moment you meet the person who changes your life. I remember the way her laughter floated through the bookstore aisle before I ever saw her face. That soft, unfiltered kind of laugh that makes you want to be the reason behind it. That's how I met Elena. Just two people reaching for the same copy of East of Eden. And either of us willing to let go first. It was never supposed to be something serious. A coffee date led to late-night phone calls. Those turned into long weekends. Cooking breakfast in pajamas, and eventually, talking about cities we might move to someday. She made me feel seen in a way no one else had. At least, that's what I believed. By the end of our second year together, I knew I wanted to marry her. Not out of pressure, not because it was the next step, but because she made even silence feel like something meaningful. I started planning months in advance, quietly, methodically. The ring, custom designed. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. She once said she hated the idea of a cliché engagement ring. I remembered. I always remembered. The proposal, it was going to happen on a long weekend trip to Big Sur, cliffside picnic, discreet photographer in place, her favorite wine. The same charcuterie setup we had on our third date. Everything, down to the weather forecast, was accounted for. I just wanted it to be perfect, because I thought she was. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. The shoot I was supervising in San Jose wrapped ahead of schedule, and I figured, when it surprised her, I stopped by that Korean bakery she loved, grabbed her favorite pastries, and picked up a small bouquet from a flower stand near our building. No occasion. Just one of those days you feel grateful and want someone to know it. The apartment door was unlocked when I arrived. I figured she'd just forgotten. Again, I walked in quietly, expecting to hear music or the sound of her tapping away on her laptop. But instead, I heard voices. Hers and someone else's. They were in the kitchen, and I could hear every word from the hallway. "No, he's not the one," Elena said, her tone light, like she was joking, but not really. "He's stable, safe, like a warm coat you keep around until spring." I froze. My heart punched through my ribs. Her friend laughed. "So, he's the backup plan?" "I mean, yeah," Elena replied without hesitation. "He's sweet, dependable, kind, like, perfect on paper, but he's not it. You know, I'm not in love. I'm just buying time until someone better comes along." The words didn't echo. They detonated. I didn't drop the pastries. I didn't slam the door. I just stood there, every muscle in my body tense with disbelief. She kept talking about how grateful she was that I wasn't clingy, how I'd probably be a great dad someday, just not to her kids. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I was no longer the man she loved. I was a placeholder in a life she didn't want. I backed out of the apartment slowly, without a sound, left everything, the flowers, the food, the future I had been building, and she never even knew I had been there. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't take anything but my keys, wallet, and the weight in my chest. The apartment behind me still held the scent of the pastries I'd left on the kitchen counter. I wondered how long it would take her to realize something was off, that I wasn't coming back. In the car, I sat for a long time. Engine off, radio silent. The city buzzed around me like it always did. Unaware that my world had just shifted on its axis. My hands rested on the steering wheel like I was waiting for direction, but there was none. Just a growing stillness inside me. I could have called someone. My best friend Luke would have answered on the first ring. I even hovered over his contact. But what would I say? That I'd spent a year building a life with someone who saw me as a waiting room. No, this was mine to carry. I started the engine and drove. Not home. There was no home anymore. I ended up at a cheap roadside motel a few towns over. The kind of place with flickering lights and a front desk clerk who didn't ask questions. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stared at the ceiling, the air conditioner humming like it understood everything I couldn't say. That night, I made my decision. I would leave her the silence she gave me in that kitchen. Not a note, not a fight, not a single explanation. She would come home to a half-empty apartment, no answers, and a hole where I used to be. I was done being the safe choice. The stable plan B. From this moment forward, I was choosing me. Luke didn't ask questions when I called. He just said, "Text me the address," and showed up 30 minutes later with 2 duffel bags and a look that said, "Whatever this is, I've got you." We waited until the tracker on her phone, yes, I checked, showed she was at her Pilates class. 45 minutes, tops. Long enough. We moved fast. I didn't take everything, just the essentials, clothes, passport, laptop, the ring, still in its velvet box at the back of my sock drawer. I left her things untouched, exactly where she'd left them. The apartment looked the same, almost, except for the silence. That new kind of silence, the one that hangs in the air like something permanent just left. No note, no text, no calls. I even disconnected the shared Netflix account. Not out of spite, but clarity. When we shut the door behind us, I didn't look back. Luke offered his guest room, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to disappear all the way. Not just socially. I drove 6 hours north. Checked into a cabin-style Airbnb near the coast, and turned off my phone. That first night, I didn't sleep, not because I was grieving. I'd done that already, in the car, in the motel, but because my mind was adjusting to the absence of noise. No more half-hopeful future plans. No more performing affection for someone waiting on someone else, just me, and air I could finally breathe. She would come home to an empty closet, blank walls, and a version of herself she wouldn't recognize without me there to reflect back her better angles. This was my closure. Silent, clean, absolute. The first missed call came just after midnight. Elena's cell. Then another. Then 5 more. By morning, I had over 20 missed calls and 3 dozen texts, each one more frantic than the last. Where are you? Are you okay? Babe, please talk to me. What is going on? By the second day, panic gave way to anger. Is this a joke? Grow up and call me back. You're being ridiculous. Day 3 brought tears back. Please, I'm scared. I don't know what happened. Just tell me what to do. I read them all. I just didn't respond. Blocking her wasn't a loud declaration. It was a quiet ritual, one contact, one app, one silence at a time. Her voice, once constant in my life, faded into white noise I no longer needed. And yet, the memories, they didn't vanish with her number. I still caught myself glancing at empty seats beside me, instinctively reaching for someone who was no longer mine. I remembered the curve of her handwriting on sticky notes, the way she used to fall asleep mid-sentence. But I also remembered the words she said in the kitchen, without knowing I was there, just buying time. There was satisfaction in watching her spiral, relief in finally being the one who chose to leave, but the real victory was quieter than revenge. It was the freedom of no longer trying to matter to someone who never truly saw me. The echoes of her guilt weren't mine to answer, not anymore. It was only a matter of time before she found me. She showed up at Luke's place on a gray Tuesday afternoon. I had been crashing there a few nights a week, just long enough to reset. Not enough to get comfortable. I heard the knock before I saw her. Elena. Luke said from the hallway, voice tight. I just need to talk to him. She breathed, eyes wide, hair unbrushed, panic wrapped around every syllable. He looked at me. I gave him the smallest nod. She stepped inside like a storm, her words already spinning. Where the hell have you been? Do you have any idea what I've been going through? I didn't answer. I let her fill the silence with all the desperation she had left. I thought something happened. I filed a missing person report. I called your mom. You just vanished. Why would you do that? I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, she seemed smaller, not fragile, but exposed, like the mask had cracked. I heard everything, I said flatly. The conversation in the kitchen. You and your friend. The part where I was the backup plan. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Wait, no, that's not what I meant. It's what you said. I was venting. I was confused. You took it out of context. I shook my head once, slow and deliberate. I took it exactly in context. She stepped forward. You don't get to do this. Just walk away without a word. You owed me a conversation. And you owed me respect. That stopped her cold. The silence that followed was thicker than anything she could have said. Her eyes searched my face, hoping for softness, for that version of me who would have forgiven, fixed, explained. But that man was gone. You made your choice, I said. I'm just making mine. Luke stepped back into the room, and without another word, I walked past her, down the steps, and into air that finally felt like mine. I thought disappearing would be enough. But some people only understand walls when they slam into them. A week after our confrontation at Luke's, Elena showed up at my parents' house. She brought flowers, told them there had been a misunderstanding. Played the victim. My mom called me afterward, confused, concerned. Then came the notes, tucked under Luke's doormat. On my windshield at the gym. Even one slid into my mailbox, no name, just a line. We can fix this. Please talk to me. I changed my number, switched gyms, kept my location private, but it didn't stop her. She started showing up places she never used to go, grocery stores, cafes I liked, the trail where I ran in the mornings, never approaching, just being there, watching, waiting. Like proximity was apology, The turning point came one night when I saw her parked outside Luke's building. Engine off. Headlights out. Just sitting there. That's when it clicked. This wasn't remorse. It was control. The next morning, I wrote the only message I would ever send her. Elena, this is your final warning. If you show up again, contact my family. Or leave anything at my door, I will file for a restraining order. We are done. Do not test this boundary. Then I blocked the number and saved a screenshot. Some endings don't require screaming or slam doors, just firm lines drawn in concrete. And I was done living without them. It's strange, the things you notice when you stop carrying the wrong weight. The first morning in my new apartment, a sunlit studio overlooking the bay, I brewed coffee and watched the fog roll out like a curtain lifting on a new stage. There were no shadows in the corners. No reminders of her voice, just space, air. Myself. I had sold the ring, donated most of the old furniture, even bought a different brand of toothpaste, small rebellions that felt like reclamation. There were still moments when memories showed up uninvited. A song in a cafe. A certain kind of laugh. But now, they didn't sting. They passed through me like ghosts in a house that no longer belonged to them. I wasn't angry anymore, not bitter, just awake. I knew now that love, real love, doesn't come with conditions like until someone better shows up. It doesn't place you on standby. It chooses you back. With the same certainty you choose it. I had spent too long being convenient, quiet, safe, the backup plan for someone waiting on a fantasy. Never again. Now, I was building something different. From the ground up. A life where I wasn't an option, but a priority. Where peace didn't feel like loneliness, but like clarity. Where I didn't have to prove my worth by being easy to love. The biggest lesson. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. And sometimes, the most loving person you need to walk toward is yourself. And I had finally done just that.